Hey there! Welcome to Story Bag. Today, we're diving into Chapter 3 of Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, where he talks about a concept that might surprise you: mind your own business. Now, this isn't just about avoiding gossip or keeping to yourself, it's actually one of the biggest secrets to financial independence. So let's get into it, and I'll share what I learned. Why minding your own business matters. So, Kiyosaki's whole point here is to shift the way we think about work, wealth, and financial freedom. Many of us grow up with the mindset that a steady paycheck and job security are the ultimate goals. We're taught to work hard, get a good education, land a stable job, and climb the corporate ladder. But Kiyosaki challenges this idea, saying that if all you do is work to make someone else rich, you may never get the chance to build wealth for yourself. Instead, he suggests we should focus on building our own business on the side. What does he mean by minding your own business? Well, in simple terms, he's talking about creating assets, things that put money in your pocket, even while you sleep. And he learned this lesson from his rich dad, who emphasized the power of investing in things that would grow and bring in more income over time. Understanding assets versus liabilities. This chapter dives into one of the most important concepts in the book, assets versus liabilities. Now, these terms can sound a bit technical, but Kiyosaki explains them in a straightforward way. He says assets are things that make money for you, like investments, rental properties, stocks, or even a small business. Liabilities, on the other hand, are things that take money out of your pocket, like a big mortgage, car loans, or credit card debt. He shares a great example to make it clear. Kiyosaki's poor dad, like most people, spent his income on things he thought were valuable but actually drained his resources. Things like a bigger house, a nice car, or fancy furniture, these might seem valuable, but they don't generate income, and often, they can cost even more over time in maintenance and interest. Rich Dad, in contrast, put his money into assets that would keep generating income for him. He'd invest in things like real estate, small businesses, or even intellectual property, things that kept growing his wealth without him having to work harder for it. Kiyosaki says the key is to understand this difference and focus on growing our assets instead of getting caught up in things that just drain our money. A story about learning early. To illustrate this, Kiyosaki shares a story from his own life. When he was a kid, he and his friend Mike learned hands-on from Rich Dad. Instead of just getting an allowance like most kids, they started a small business venture. It wasn't anything fancy. They tried recycling comic books and selling them to their friends. The idea wasn't to make a fortune, but to get used to the concept of investing time and energy into something that could potentially make money, even on a small scale. This lesson stuck with Kiyosaki. He learned that you don't have to start big to start building wealth. Sometimes, the smallest efforts lead to the biggest changes in mindset. He encourages us to think about ways we can start creating assets, even if we're only able to make a small investment or spend a little time on it each week. The job trap and the freedom of building assets. Another big concept in this chapter is what Kiyosaki calls the job trap. Now, he's not saying that having a job is a bad thing. In fact, he says that a job can be a great way to start out, learn skills, and earn some capital. But he warns that relying only on a job and a paycheck can sometimes hold us back from reaching true financial freedom. Think about it, a job gives you a steady income, but it also limits how much you can earn. No matter how hard you work, you're often capped by a salary, and if anything happens to that job, it can leave you vulnerable. Kiyosaki suggests that instead of just depending on a paycheck, we should focus on creating income streams outside of our jobs. By doing so, we can gain more control over our financial future and even reach a point where our assets provide enough income to cover our expenses. That's what he calls financial freedom. Practical steps to start building your own assets. Kiyosaki gives some practical advice on how to start this journey, even if we don't have a lot of money to invest right away. He suggests starting small, with whatever we can afford. It could be a small investment in stocks, setting up a side hustle, or even educating ourselves about opportunities like real estate. A big part of his message is that building wealth is less about having lots of money to start with and more about being consistent and disciplined. He encourages us to set aside a portion of our income each month and put it into something that has the potential to grow, instead of spending it all on things that won't add long-term value to our lives. He also mentions that financial education is key. Learning about how money works, understanding basic investment principles, and knowing how to spot a good opportunity can make a world of difference. The mindset shift, thinking like a business owner. Another big takeaway from this chapter is the importance of thinking like a business owner rather than just an employee. Kiyosaki says that while employees work for someone else, business owners think in terms of creating value and generating income from their own ventures. This doesn't mean you need to quit your job and start a big business, but it's about shifting the way we see our work and finances. For example, Kiyosaki suggests that we think about how we can turn our skills or hobbies into side businesses, or how we can use our time outside of work to build something that could create income down the road. It's about taking small steps toward a bigger goal of financial independence, taking it into our own lives. So, how do we take this lesson and actually apply it? Kiyosaki says it all starts with mindset and the willingness to try something new. He encourages us to be open to learning and to be proactive about seeking opportunities. Whether it's investing a small amount in stocks, starting a small business, or even just saving up to buy an asset like real estate someday, the key is to get started. For Kiyosaki, financial independence isn't something you achieve overnight, it's the result of many small decisions made over time. By keeping the focus on building assets and creating income outside of a traditional job, he says anyone can reach financial freedom. Key takeaways. The main takeaway from Chapter 3? It's all about minding your own business by building assets that create income. Kiyosaki's advice is to focus on this, no matter what stage of life you're in or how much money you have to start with. Financial freedom is possible if you keep the focus on building your asset column. In closing, I'd love to hear what you think. What ideas resonate with you from this chapter? Are there any small steps you can take toward building assets in your own life? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Storybag for more insights on books that can change the way we think about money and life.